Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. India is once again facing turbulent times. And these turbulent times remind me of what happened about a year and a half back when excellently designed, extremely useful nationally and individually for the farm bills were opposed, resulting ultimately in their withdrawal. And this list is actually for Government of India is once again raised a hornet's nest. Of course, nobody denies that such well coordinated protests spread all over India, resulting in complete paralysis of the government and the commercial activities for a day, and the destruction of the public property going into millions of dollars is nothing but politically created opposition. The normal thing is it really a harebrained scheme or not? And I am amazed that even some military officers are making statements that are absolutely unacceptable in the sense that they show that these military officers don't know anything at all about the Indian army and the traditions of the Indian army. One of them made a video, and one of our friends, Mr. Singh Jaspal of Misaba, sent that video to me. I was amazed that this guy was president of the Union of the Army Officers, and is not aware that this scheme incorporates something which was already there till 1977. In 1977 it changed, but till that time there was no change at all. I'm talking about just one instance, that the people object to 4 years service and then they're going back. And the objection is, yes, 4 years you can't train people. They forget that till 1977, Indian Army soldier was only for 7 years. And all the wars that India won were by these soldiers. Then in 77 they changed it to 15 years. And now this scheme is a secondary scheme. The mainstay would continue for 15 years, but these short-term courses. Now, whether this is what they say in Hindi, hosh and josh, enthusiasm, but the purpose is two ways. Already, the pensions of the army officers and the jawans are killing. And these writers are forgetting one thing, and so are their political masters, that the defense of India is not a job creation scheme. India needs to modernize its military capability, focus on high-tech areas as cyber war, drones, missiles, and even space weapons. Boots on the ground still matter, but less than before. A thorough overhaul of the human resources is imperative. And this scheme is a first major step in that direction, and it's an important step. Of course, government can tweak the details to assuage the hurt aspirations, and it has done so. 4 changes have been made. But it must not under any circumstance surrender to the agitators that it did earlier in the time of the farm bills. As a matter of fact, we have seen most recruits serve about 15 years and then draw pension for 50 years as the burden of the taxpayer. The system has to change. So the new army policy is simple. 75-25% ratio, determining how many new soldiers are let go and how many are retained after 4 years. And that makes fiscal sense. In Israel, every young man has to serve in the army for 2 years and no salaries. In China, everybody has to serve without any problem. And China did much more in the last 5 years, pruned its army by 50%, but increased short-term training programs, and they retrenched 3 lakh troops. So by these metrics, India's recruitment policy is not radical. It makes sense. Are you aware that the annual defense budget last year, half of it was 52 lakh crores, and that was just pension, salaries and pensions. So fiscally is important, and then 4 years of training in discipline, as we have seen for 7 years, and 2 years in Israel, and 2 years in USA, all over is a city, and 2 years in China. All these have 2 years, and after 2 years they go back to their normal life, and when the need is there, they are called back. So this is a disciplined life, and I was very much impressed by one industrialist, Anand Mahindra. He said, well, these people would be so good after training that they'll be happy to employ them because they're disciplined, they're dedicated, they're nationalists. Of course, there have been debates intensely and in media also, but I'm surprised that the people having negative thoughts magnified the painted dismal picture, and the fact is, the scheme does not lack merit. Under the new scheme, the non-commissioned officer will be recruited for a 4-year period. 25% will be retained, and rest will go. But then the government has also said that more than them would be absorbed in paramilitary forces and in the police forces, and the commitments have been made. And as I said, that in 7 years training, those people, the armed forces people of India, they fought and won. So if in 7 years training with the old 303 rifles, bolt rifles, they could win. With the latest arms that are being brought in, 4 years training is sufficient. What has surprised many is that many recruitment schemes, armed forces employ less than 0.5% government workers, and that has led to the protest. Why? As a matter of fact, I was very happy and impressed when the army said that these people who are agitating, they'll have to give a pledge that they were not parts. The police reports would be called, and anybody who is a participant would not be recruited. They should not be. As a matter of fact, this is an instruction, and the policy of that recruitment is not to be determined by the candidates. Now these 25% personnel retained would serve for a minimum of 15 years, and thus they come at par with them. What would happen? The results. The armed forces would be younger and tech savvy. Yes, they will not be employed, but why should they be? As a matter of fact, let's see the idea behind this. And remember, this scheme was there in embryo, and we had recommended to the Prime Minister way back in 1973 that we must have a national army. Each officer should be trained. And NCC scheme was for that purpose. The C certificate of NCC, the people after that could go directly to the officers training school, the OTC, if they were selected, of course. And that was a good scheme. And we proposed that it be made compulsory for every student instead of being an optional subject. So Agnipath is creating a youthful, tech-savvy armed forces. And the policy has been called tour on duty, while the defense minister is saying it should not be called so. Now, this media plays a very dirty game. This scheme would provide an opportunity to youth who are keen to don the uniform by attracting young talent from society, who are more in tune with the contemporary technological trends, and they go back to the society as disciplined, skilled, motivated manpower. Yes, the new recruitment policy would cut the ballooning salary and the pension bills, which have risen exorbitantly. You know, in the latest budget 2022-23, the defense component by itself stands at 500,000 crores, out of which the pensions amount to 22%. Isn't that a wastage of the taxpayer money? And those people should get pension, should get the benefit, but not this way. And that's why let them be there for 4 years, 5 years, and then send them back to the civil army and call them up. The idea is that the 75% soldiers who leave service after 4 years would be skilled enough to be employed in the private sector, public sector undertakings, several ministries. And the government has now said that they reserve most of the seats for them. Now, what are the main features? The people recruited would be men and women in the age group of 17 to 21, and now it's come to 23 for some time. The physical and medical and educational standards would remain unchanged. In the first year, they'll be paid 30,000 rupees per month, and in the fourth year, they'll get 40,000 rupees per month. They would contribute 30% of and the government will contribute a matching amount of 30%. And at the time of their release after 4 years, they'll get 11.71 lakhs. Now this exit package of 11.71 lakhs would be tax exempt. They'll also be having non-contributory life insurance of 48 lakhs for the duration of the service. So free life insurance of half a crore, 11.75% non-taxable payment after 4 years, and 40,000 rupees per month. And the recruitment and further absorption of 25% soldiers would be centralized. Can there be a better thing? And now, the first batch of the Agnipath soldiers, dubbed Agniveers. Agni is fire, Path is the root, Agniveer is the braves. So, this year they plan to recruit 46,000 people. Notably, for last 2 years there could not be any recruitment because of the pandemic. So this would be done on an all India, all class format. Now, one thing which I love about is that the British era caste and class based recruitment would not be there. It will be open, equal standard for everybody, but not that these are the martial races, then they should know. Now, the class specific regiments like Sikhs, Rajputs, Jats and Marathas would be affected. Now, what's the criticism? It's a revolutionary step that nobody can do. It's a golden tomorrow for the army, but the critics say it's bad. Some of them say that 4 years would lead to a shortage of experienced soldiers in the forces. But as I already said, that this is wrong. In reality, the proposal expects a Superman from there. So there is nothing wrong with that. And 4 years training is more than sufficient. As a matter of fact, they would find entry into private sector, and according to some people it's a fraud, which is not. As the statement of Anand Mahindra shows, the industry is already looking forward to 4 years trained, tech-savvy, disciplined, nationally oriented, dedicated people. Now there is one aspect which cannot be ignored. Indian Army fights for Paltan ki Izzat. Izzat is respect for the platoon where they are working. And for most siblings and those who haven't seen combat, it is not a easily understandable concept. But let's also not forget that this is a very impressionable age, and once they are inducted and they interact with the people already serving soldiers, the infection of the dedication and the respect for the troops would automatically be there, and they would become that. Now, point is, the insinuation that those serving for a short period would be tourists and ineffective soldiers. Is it correct? Does the twisting tour of duty into tourism reflect the true state of short-term soldiers? No. As I said, the color services of Indian soldiers were 7 years during 2 world wars, and they showed phenomenal capability. They won Victoria Crosses, and about 80% of the people who won those Victoria Cross had less than 5 years of service. And still, after this proof, we have doubt. The new recruitment plan would strain existing training sources. It's not possible. Let's not forget that subunits may suffer temporarily, but then when you change takes place, some setback is always there, which is offset immediately. So subunits may not have enough soldiers immediately to be NCOs, but let's not forget. And now I agreed with Lieutenant General J.S. Sandhu. He served in Kashmir, and he argues that if the unit commanders can manage the morale of the soldiers, the new recruitment scheme won't affect the army's fighting spirit. And some of these answers will be known only down the line. But what's required is that in government and the military authority should keep a close eye on whether and how the change is affecting the ground reality. You can always tweak the matters. There's nothing written in stone. The other issue, of course, will be 1,000 young men released. And is the 11.71 lakh sufficient? Yes, it's a good question to start with, provided the civic services, the civilian life is offering plenty of employment, which is there. And that is why the document released Myths versus Facts with the Government of India addresses these concerns. The most common issue was short course, which I said. And then government has also committed that those wishing to be entrepreneurs after service will get their financial package. And also there's a bank loan scheme for that. They can start their own business. And those wishing to study further will be given a 12th class equivalent certificate and a bridge certificate for the further studies. And they will get, of course, priority in the Central Armed Police Force and State Police Forces. The other concern raised that their regimental bonding will be affected. Again, that's not acceptable, as we have discussed. As a matter of fact, it would be increased, enhanced, because the best of the Agniveers would be selected, just 25%. 75% would be weeded out, and they would make up 3% of the armed forces. And let's not forget, after 4 years they are going to be tested, and hence army will get only tested and tried personnel for supervisory ranks. At no point in time will there be more youngsters than the experienced ones. The present scheme will ultimately bring the right mix of 50%, slowly in the very long run, of youngsters and experienced supervisory ranks. So many have raised the issue that 21-year-old with a professional arms training might not have a job and could be vulnerable to joining terrorist group when they come back. So let me tell you, the youngsters who have worn uniform 4 years, who will remain committed to the country for the rest of life, show me a single soldier, who after working in the army even for a couple of years, say he is injured, he is disabled and he is sent back. Does he ever become anti-national? No. The training, the dedication is so ingrained that they'll do anything. So there is no danger of that. The scheme is an excellent one. I wish the politicians had not coordinated this nationwide opposition, which in fact is harmful to the nation and ultimately harmful for those politicians as well. The public would see through their games. It's a political game. But at whose cost? At the cost of the country. All revolutionary schemes have some defects, but in due course of time, all the wrinkles are washed out, cleaned, ironed, and that's what's going to happen with this Agnipath. Agnipath is really a scheme worth following, and I'm happy that our note of 1973 has been acted now. It should have been done long back. We should have a 2 years. I mean, we had recommended 2 years, but 4 years double this time. And we said 2 years and 60% should be absorbed, 40% should be thrown out. But here is 4 years, so it's better than 25%. So real good would be selected, and that would make Indian Army a real national army, and the whole nation, those 75% who come back every year. After 4 years, every year they'll become well. They will be a part of a regular reserve team to be used in the time of need, in battle, out of the battle, for national service. What more do we want? Come on, wake up. And let's not be carping critics for nothing. This is an imperative need of India, and it's time to implement it without any further delay. Thank you.